So in this key area, we're going to have a look at variation between individuals, and then we'll move on in the next video to have a look at why we've got that variation, looking at DNA and then genetic inheritance. So first of all, if you look at the members of the same family, often they'll look quite similar. So you have a wee look at this here. Which parent do the children look like? Why do members of the same family look similar? Humans, like all organisms, inherit characteristics from their parents. How are these characteristics passed on? Well, they're passed on through reproduction. Now, there's these terms here, and we often talk about this term here, species. What do we mean by a species? Well, a species is a group of organisms which can interbreed and produce offspring which are fertile. That means produce offspring that are able to reproduce themselves. Now, all humans can interbreed, so we're all the same species, whether you come from China, Africa, Scotland, England, America, whatever human that you are interbreeding with, then you can produce children that are able themselves to have their own children. So we are said to all be the one species. I've got some unusual examples here of some animals that seem to be members of the same species but are not. The animals may be able to interbreed and produce young, but the young are not able to go on to reproduce. And two examples of this are mules and ligers. Now, if we have a wee look at a mule here, a mule is produced from breeding a horse with a donkey, and you produce a mule. But the mule itself is infertile. It's not able to go on and produce other mules. So a mule is not known as a species. Donkeys are known as a species. Donkeys can breed with other donkeys, and they can produce fertile donkeys to go on to make more donkeys. Horses are a species, and they can interbreed together and go on to produce other horses. But mules can't interbreed with each other. Another example here is that it is possible to breed a lion and a tiger together to produce this here, a liger. Tigers are a species in their own, lions are a species in their own, but ligers aren't a species because ligers are not able to then go on and breed with other ligers and produce offspring. So a liger is not known as a species, it's just known as a crossbreed here. Now, if you're looking at members of a species, they can be very similar to each other, but they're not identical. You've got variation that occurs among members of a species. And examples of that would be if you were looking at species of dogs. You've got huge variation between dogs. We've got a boxer here, a Labrador here, I think that's a red setter, some sort of Malamute or husky here, or you get a Heinz variety where you've got a mongrel, or collies. You've got all these different, or all this variation between one species. They're all able to interbreed with each other and produce fertile offspring, but they are very different. Here's other examples of variation here. Your ladybirds with all your different spots and different colours, your snails with different coloured shells, different mice, different coloured piglets. And when it comes to humans, there's a lot of variety. When you look at humans, you've got different heights, different blood groups, different weights, whether you're right-handed, left-handed, hair colour, freckles, eye colour, shoe size, hair type, hand span, heart rate. All of these you've got all these variations that exist between the human species. Now we're going to have a look at these different types of variation, because the variation gets categorised into different types of variation. And the first one we're going to have a look at is something that is called discrete variation. And I haven't written this up here. Now, discrete variation is where the characteristic falls into clear groups. So you can have individuals, for example, if you're a human, who can tongue roll or that cannot tongue roll. So you're either a tongue roller or you're not. Or you've got blood groups. You're either A blood group or you're B blood group, or you've got an AB blood group or you're an O blood group. So that falls into groups. or fingerprint patterns. You've either got whorls or loops or arches in your fingerprints. Or if we have a look at these leaves that are over here, you've got leaves that have got no lobes on them, and you've got leaves here that have got lobes on them. Or you may be looking at the colours of petals on a flower, or seed colours in peas here. So all falling into groups. You can have greens or whites or browns, or yellows here. So these are all types of variation that fall into groups. And when we're representing that type of variation, we represent it as a bar chart or as a pie chart, but more often as a bar chart. So over here you'll see you've got a certain population and you represent the blood group A as a percentage of the population, and you produce a bar, and blood group B and so on. Over here there's a pie chart here looking at eye colour and a certain number of people, 150 people, 75 of them have got brown eyes, 45 have got blue eyes, and 30 have got green. So if you've got the whole of this circle here is counting for 150 people, half of them are 75 with brown eyes, and then you can work out roughly where your 30 and your 45 are here on your bar chart, pie chart. The other type of, this is looking at some other examples of discrete variation, and you can have a look within the class and construct a table looking at whether individuals can roll their tongue or whether they've got attached earlobes. So you'll see this is an attached earlobe here. Or if you've got a free earlobe, that is where you've got a sort of lobe that hangs down and it is free from the side of the individual's head. And you can look at examples of variation of people in your class. So have a look to see who's got freckles or tongue rollers or left or right-handed, earlobes attached, and then make up a bar graph. So choose one of these. I would suggest that you choose the tongue rollers or the earlobes to make up your bar graph, so you've got enough people for a bar graph. Now there are other characteristics that they don't fall into groups, but they fall across a range of measured values, and this is known as continuous variation. And examples of that would be height in humans, heights of trees, weight of rabbits, weight of humans, the pulse rate in humans, leaf size in geraniums, weight of chestnuts or mass of chestnuts from a tree, as I said, height in humans as well, where you get this broad range of values. So if you're looking at heights in humans, you're going from maybe something like 4 feet up to something like 6 or 7 feet, something like that. So you've got a range of values in between. It doesn't fall into groups like you've got 1,000 people that are 4 feet high, 1,000 people that are 5 feet high, 6 feet, 7 feet. You've got all sorts of ranges in between there, 5'2" or 4'10" and so on. So you get this range. And how we represent these range of heights and sizes and so on is as this kind of graph here, which is known as a histogram. And in this example here, what has happened is individuals have been measured, their height have been measured, and it's looking to see how many people fall into these different ranges of heights here. So for example, the height up to 129 centimetres, well, up to there's very few people, or there's none up to there. Number of people that fall between a height of 130 to 134 centimetres, well, that maybe be something like 4 individuals. So you draw a wee bar, and then the number of people that are in the height between 135 and 139 centimetres, and that could be a bit more, maybe 6 people fall in that category there. So the bar is drawn, and then so on, how many people fall in this category here, that's 140 to 144, and that might be 11 people, so there's a wee bar, and so on. And the bars are drawn depending on how many people fall in the categories, and put together here like this histogram, and then the histogram is joined together by this line that is here to produce something that is called a normal distribution curve. So this curve here goes up and then back down again. And what this curve is saying is that over at these ends here, there are much less people at the extremes. So less people are very short in height, or less people are very, very tall. And most people fall somewhere in between here, with a kind of an average mean here, with most people falling in amongst this kind of average height range here. And this is how you would draw a graph for continuous variation, where you're showing this range across a range of different heights. And you can have a wee shot of trying that. We might not have enough people in your class for doing that, so you may want to go across and just get the measurements of different people, depending on what kind of time we've got to be able to draw out a histogram.